try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. Looking for change, looking for pain, pulling a mob, pushing a train. I'll never stop, stick to a lane, pick up the pieces and go rearrange. I'll be the best above all the rest, put me to the test and expect nothing less, your check is I'm chess, what's happening next, yeah. He got the venom, a tangible weapon, no coming in second. This life is a lesson, he got a new engine from pain, it's a blessing. New focus, no guessing, just bold and obsession, all in his possession. You got their attention, I'll leave an impression and take your redemption. Just kill, no discretion, your mind is a weapon. 11-11, it's time for progression, You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep on this scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they try the chains, you can say no, free me. So he's been looking for somebody who could save him, instead of searching inside for what they gave him. A strong will, strong mind causes mayhem. We could change the world, change times, rearrange them. Staying on pace, running the race. Life is a chase, I don't want a place, I wanna be first. Work till it hurts, dehydrated thirst till I'm in a hearse. High ambitions in the right mind can take you so far. It's like you lived a few lifetimes. Take off, I'ma break off from the weak minds. They can stay soft, you can change lives, you create thoughts. Never waste time, you got one shot, you got one life. Better pop off, what do you like? Make a dream job, no 9-5, no mean boss. Just my life and free thoughts. You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep on this scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they try the chains, you can say no, free me. Try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. Looking for change, looking for pain, pulling a mob, pushing a train. I'll never stop, stick to a lane, pick up the pieces and go rearrange. I'll be the best above all the rest, put me to the test and expect nothing less, your check is I'm chess, what's happening next, yeah. He got the venom, a tangible weapon, no coming in second. This life is a lesson, he got a new engine from pain, it's a blessing. New focus, no guessing, just bold and obsession, all in his possession. You got their attention, I'll leave an impression and take your redemption. Just kill, no discretion, your mind is a weapon. 11-11, it's time for progression, You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep on this scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they try the chains, you can say no, free me. So he's been looking for somebody who could save him, instead of searching inside for what they gave him. A strong will, strong mind causes mayhem. We could change the world, change times, rearrange them. Staying on pace, running the race. Life is a chase, I don't want a place, I wanna be first. Work till it hurts, dehydrated thirst till I'm in a hearse. High ambitions in the right mind can take you so far. It's like you lived a few lifetimes. Take off, I'ma break off from the weak minds. They can stay soft, you can change lives, you create thoughts. Never waste time, you got one shot, you got one life. Better pop off, what do you like? Make a dream job, no 9-5, no mean boss. Just my life and free thoughts. You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep on this scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they try the chains, you can say no, free me. Easy, you don't wanna be fast asleep on this scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they try the chains, you can say no, free me. So he's been looking for somebody who could save him, instead of searching inside for what they gave him. A strong will, strong mind causes mayhem. We could change the world, change times, rearrange them. Staying on pace, running the race. Life is a chase, I don't want a place, I wanna be first. Work till it hurts, dehydrated thirst till I'm in a hearse. High ambitions in the right mind can take you so far. It's like you lived a few lifetimes. Take off, I'ma break off from the new light, make a dream job. No 9-5, no mean boss, just my life and free thoughts. You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep, only scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they try the chains, you can say no, free me.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? And Joe's represent for the Gray Pill Podcast. Appreciate everybody coming through. Miss Polly, definitely appreciate you. Dangerously active again. Lil, like always. And thank you. First time coming through for the live, so get ready for a great conversation. I promise you. I promise you. Cool gamer, like always. Miss Pharmacy Tish, she was gonna make it as a guest, but she had to do that real life stuff work. So she might come in a little bit later, and she will definitely be around for this Saturday for discussion. So Saturday we're gonna talk about Mr. Tatey Boy. So get ready for that conversation because it's a lot. Appreciate you, Just Jay. New York is in the house. All right, so here we go. So I think we got one guest coming through. We'll give them 20 minutes so they're getting their stuff together. So we're gonna go ahead and start the conversation. So as we wait for that one, we're going to go ahead and introduce some people coming on through. My boy, Ricky. So came through him, noticed him on Red Lipstick Vibes, and then we had a great conversation, which I will revisit that, Ricky, because I feel like the world needs to know the shenanigans of what's his name, Derek Jackson's wife. You know, the real kingpin. You muted, bro.
Yeah, it's a whole mess.
Yeah. So I got to bring that back to light because the world needs to know that one. He can't be putting on those brothers like that. We know he was doing, but at the same time, somebody really had the key and lock all in the back. So
yeah, man, the powers in it is influence. People don't understand that though.
Yeah, the power of the P. I appreciate you. All right, my homeboy Lee, appreciate you, man. And no other. You love the hater, you hated the lover. Lauren, appreciate you, Lauren.
Hello, Greg, Lauren.
Hi.
All right, so let's just get this started. So, question. All right, so do anybody agree, disagree? Do we agree that racism is real, is still existing today? We'll start with that one. Lee, Lauren?
Me, I believe systematic. Me personally, I don't think as a whole, on a large scale, that most people are racist. I don't believe that. Okay. I believe the system is racist, though.
Okay, fair enough. Lead, what about you?
Systemic. Yeah, I think there's a few things that could be considered. I have to agree with him. I don't believe it's a large scale thing. There's certainly things at play that allow for that shouldn't be.
Uh-huh.
So that's about where I stand. But I think a lot of it too is also we're still fighting over biases of the past. I think a lot of that has to do with it. And that's just from my perspective, but we'll get into that.
Okay. Lauren, what about you?
What was the first part of the question? Whether we use systemic or systematic?
Yeah, do we agree that racism is still alive and kicking? And your thoughts on systemic racism?
Yeah, I think that certain people are racist. I think there's individuals that are racist, but I do not believe systemic racism exists. I don't think that it's an issue in our country.
All right. Well, let Deuce chime in, and if he has a rebuttal from that. What's going on, Deuce? So the question was, we just came in. Do you believe racism still exists, and your thoughts on systemic racism? And I don't know if you heard what Lauren said. She said she don't agree that systemic racism exists.
Yes, it still exists. I believe it still exists because you have to look at the foundation, right? This is why I like
Try to turn your mic up, your mic up just a little bit.
Mic?
Yeah, just the mic. The volume turn up a little bit.
Better?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Yes, I do believe it still exists because if you look at the foundation, right, of
that's racism.
yes, right.
Okay.
So when the basis of your laws are founded in racism, then that means the application of it is still it uses racism, right? So when you even look at like police practices, right, even the police practices in America are founded on slave catching laws and slave catching tactics, right? That's the foundation of law enforcement in the United States of America. So if that was the foundation of it, and that's how it started, and that's how it was always applied, then it always applied, and that's why you see over policing in Black and brown communities because that's how it's always been. So you ever heard the phrase, "This is how it's always been. It's how it will be." So yes, it is systemic. It's systemic because the foundation of it is it was built on racism.
All right, fair enough. Anybody rebuttal to that or want to
Well,
continue?
I just have a question for him. So, like, would you be like, do you think Planned Parenthood should be shut down, Deuce?
I don't know. I haven't really. I never really really knew anything really about Planned Parenthood. It wasn't something that was like in my community or whatever. We didn't have like Planned Parenthood centers or whatever where I was from, so it wasn't like I didn't have a dog in that fight.
Okay, but the foundation of Planned Parenthood was to eliminate the Black race in America. Because the founder, Margaret Sanger, was a vehement racist who hated specifically Black people, and she thought encouraging abortion clinics around America would be the fastest way to get rid of the Black population in America. So should we get rid of all Planned Parenthoods then? And then is Planned Parenthood systemically racist?
I mean, yeah, if they specifically market to minorities and Black people, then absolutely. I mean, and then there's other stuff you have to touch on, right? Because before Planned Parenthood, there was forced sterilizations, right? So that was just another retooling of forced involuntary sterilization. So yeah, I mean, but there's still a choice, right? So it's not like anybody's forcing you to do it, right? So now you get into the choice aspect. So it's one thing if you're going in for medical care and if people are like choosing to sterilize you when you're going in for like non-invasive procedures and they just decide to sterilize you, right? That was some crazy stuff that was going on in the earlier 20th century. But Planned Parenthood, I mean, at the end of the day, people still have the choice, right? So you don't want to take people's choice away for whatever reason. So if they make that choice, it is whatever. But yes, is the foundation of it racist? If that was her intent.
Right. So then, is it currently today racist? Then,
Yeah,
is my question. You're saying people should have their choice today. So it sounds like you're saying Planned Parenthood. You should have Planned Parenthoods, but I'm saying its foundation was clearly based in racism. You're saying things. Okay, you said a couple of things. First of all, you said slave catching was founded in. Policing was founded in slave catching. So I'm assuming you got that from the movie 13, the 13th.
No, I got it from somewhere else. I didn't see it.
So that actually has been,
widely. I got that from the Police Commission. I got that from the Police Commission of New York City. The Police Commission of New York City admitted that the foundation of most police practices are founded in slave catching laws. So if you look at the evolution of West,
that's just not true because policing has been around since before the foundation of this country. So we got a lot of our policing from, French ideology and from English ideology, having absolutely nothing to do with slave catching.
Did the French have slaves?
The French did have slaves, but they like the Bastille, for instance, and the storming of the Bastille was not to free slaves; it was to free average French citizens. All
right. Do you know what a highwayman? Do you know what a highwayman is? Right. So if you look at highway patrol, right. So where do we get the highway patrol from?
So
because they didn't have highways. They didn't have highways.
Modern day highway patrol.
Yeah.
That I understand. That is not based in slave catching. I'm sorry
It's
to
not.
say, it just is not.
Okay, how so?
No. Okay, well, did we even have modern day highways during the slave era? We didn't. So there's no way that we could possibly say that modern day, highway patrolmen, especially black highway patrolmen who
Black highway.
arrest people of all colors, that they're derivative of slave catchers.
Okay. So the road. Okay, so this is just you understand about like slavery, right? So the roads between plantations and the roads outside of plantations leading to and from plantation, right, were monitored for runaway slaves. That's where highwaymen came from, right? They sat there and their only job was catching runaway slaves. They had a 5-point star shaped badge that said highwayman, right? That is the foundation of highway patrol. They were patrolling the roads looking for runaway slaves, right? So even with police practices, when they say, and this is what the police commissioner, right? So this is another thing, right? I mean, are you in law enforcement?
Not really.
No, not really, right? So the police commissioner, in New York City, previous police commissioner, not the one now, but the one before him. He's been
That's headed by a black man, right?
30 something years. He's been in 30 something years, right? So he's an authority on this, right? This is a white man, and he said yes.
Wait. If he's a police commissioner, he is not over state police. The governor is over state police.
That's correct.
Okay, but but policing, right? He's in.
Yeah, I understand that. I have police officers in my family.
Right. So do I. So my
Okay, wait. If you have police officers in your family, are those family members black?
Obviously.
One is, one isn't.
Oh, wait. Well, okay. Not all of your family members are obviously.
Hold on, let Ricky. Hold on.
I'm gonna be honest with that, Lauren. I feel you're being obtuse, right? Because racism isn't about your color; it's about power, right? Again, racism can be exhibited by white, black, Mexican, whoever. It's all depending on a set of that's being put down upon a person, right? The truth of the matter is that it's not even about the police state. Again, we're all being policed, white, black, Mexican, Chinese, it doesn't matter. The point is that we're talking about racism. Now, racism exists because, and I believe it's systematic, meaning most people aren't racist. Most people aren't. Most people nowadays in this country we call America grow up with different ethnicities, people with different cultures, right? You probably ate at a black woman's house, or your friend was Mexican, or whatever have you, right? But the systems that's been put in place that are reinforced by law and paperwork have not been changed majorly since the inception of this country. Meaning that when you go to a job, especially a job that's sanctioned by the state or your city, they have certain rules that's been passed down since the inception of that town, right? And they haven't changed. What law? And this is what people don't understand about laws. Period. Laws get into these things get into law because nobody ever objects to them. Who's objecting to the laws that's in place? Nobody is going up to the Supreme Court every week saying, hey, this particular law that exhibit racism is incorrect. They're not doing
that. Well, constitutionally, if a law is on its face racist, it is constitutionally void. And so if the state were to try to use it against you, you would be able to.
Correct. Let me finish my point. That is correct. But is it practiced though?
Mm-hmm. Is it? Yes, it is.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Because if that was the case.
Sorry, where's your foundation for that statement that it's not practiced?
Because it's not. Because if that was the case, that means no cop can come into your home without a warrant. When they'll neglect it day in and day out, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not about what's on the book.
I'm someone who works in defense, right? And when it comes to Fourth Amendment violations, that's one of the main things that we motion for if we're trying to suppress evidence. So I don't know what you're talking about. That's not used. And then also, I've also tried to motion for a statute being unconstitutional before.
Yeah.
I've definitely done that. It wasn't a race-based
fine.
issue,
That-
but it was.
Can
I
I
thought
say
it was
something?
fake.
So you saying
unconstitutional.
so statute, right? So you're saying so the statute was already enacted, right? So then that means that it was already enacted and it was already implemented. And then now you try to, after the fact, after it's already been implemented, after it's being enforced, then you try to rule it unconstitutional, which means it's already being enforced. It was implemented, which means somebody in the local government like voted on it, it went into action, and then after the fact, it is now challenged by the Supreme Court, right? When you try to suppress it through the Fourth Amendment, so on and so forth. But it's still being
It doesn't
enforced.
necessarily have to be the Supreme Court, but the problem is you're not even allowed to challenge the constitutionality of a law until there is an issue at fact. So that's just the system
After
we
it's
have.
passed, after it's violated people's constitutional rights. So this is saying racism. Boom. Especially when it's applied.
That has nothing to do with racism.
It absolutely does, especially when
Well, our constitution. So just because a law, if you believe a law is racist and it gets passed, we have a system in place to eliminate it. Because it happens to get passed, you're saying that proves that the system is racist. But I think the fact that our system has a system in place that requires all laws passed to be unconstitutionally voided, especially when attempted to be enforced, which proves that we have a not racist. In fact, we have the least racist country, in my opinion, in the globe. I don't know of any country that has as many types of people in it and get along so peacefully.
All right, hold on, time out, dudes. Hold that thought. We got two people just came in. Miss Lola, appreciate you for coming in. Is your mic good now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. And Soldier, appreciate you, man. So between Soldier and Lola, we'll go one at a time. Lola, do you believe racism is real, still exists and kicking? And your thoughts on systemic racism? And Soldier Boy, same question. My bad, Soldier. Same question to you.
I would say racism obviously still exists. I would say it exists in a different form than we're traditionally used to seeing it or hearing about it. It's not the same, and it doesn't operate the same. As far as the system of it all, of course, everything works on the system if it's going to work. Again, that system is also, in my opinion, different, or it's morphed from the system it used to be, because obviously systems are based on what works in a particular moment and instance. So I do feel that these are the same old issues in terms of racism in general, but I do believe that because of technology, because of just the way culture has moved, racism has also evolved as well.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, Soldier? Oh no, you sound very low. Yeah, you muffled.
Are you underwater?
All right, we'll give you a minute to come back. Yeah, we'll give you a minute to come back. Lead. Any rebuttal to that, or we'll bring it back to Lola on her thoughts on anything that everybody else said.
Well, I guess I define systemic a little differently, meaning that it's inherent. And I don't think laws are written to be inherently racist. Just as, like he was talking about laws talking about laws and how they're challenged in the Supreme Court, and she's correct. You can't challenge them until they affect somebody. They could write a bazillion laws, and as long as they never affect anybody, you have no challenge, no standing. And that's the way our system is designed when it comes to that checks and balances. What I look at when you talk about systemic is more out in day-to-day society versus the systems behind it.
Can you give an example or two?
Pardon?
Can you give an example of two of that?
Um, well, we talked about it earlier. Uh, Me, a white guy, going down to a predominantly black area and going to bars or clubs or whatever. Or you, vice versa, coming up here to where I live and going to bars or clubs or whatever. And would you or would you not feel uncomfortable about that? Now, is that racism on either one of our parts? See, that's where to me systemic comes in. It's an unrealized, it's an it's an irrational fear, in my opinion. That shouldn't be, and we don't make that ourselves as a people. Unfortunately, we're conditioned that through media and all other things. And it looks like Ricky agrees with me on that.
I agree 100, and that's what I'm saying. It's within the system, right? Most people are not. Most the individual is not inherently racist. I don't believe that. I know too
Correct.
many. I know too many people of different cultures that I can get along with that actually believe in the same things. They want their family to be better. They want to be able to go on vacation every once in a while. They don't want to have to worry about no food or no rent, right? I think that's the general status of most Americans. But again, we can't say it's not systematic when even when you fill out an application, it's asking you of your race.
Correct.
Good point.
I agree on that.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, what? Okay.
But hold on. Can I just
Sure.
just address that? So, like, if you're applying to a lot of places right now, it benefits Black people over white people. For instance, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, almost every college. If you have identical applications, same everything, except for one's checked Black, one's checked white or Asian, the Black student is going to be preferred. So to say that clicking a box is going to harm you systemically, that doesn't really help your case today.
I'm not making no case with you. I have no point to prove with you. My question is that why did you even take the point of me saying that it's something negative for you? It doesn't have to be negative or positive. It simply exists.
I agree with you, actually, that I think it is racist to ask.
Finish my point, please. Right?
Sorry.
So again, if it's on the paper and I tell you it's built into the system that racism does exist, and I could pull out a government form or a private form for a business showing they're asking about your ethnicity, doesn't that have to do with race?
Right, but the reason that they ask, so like the Supreme Court has ruled that they can use certain measures, especially in higher education, to help reverse racism in our history. So even though you're not allowed to discriminate based off race, even in private organizations, you are in higher education in order to help alleviate prior racism. So that's why they ask. Yes, and actually, one point that I wanted to address about somebody said, yeah, okay, well, the laws aren't racist on their face necessarily, but that's a thing. So if a law is racist on its face, it's not going to be constitutional. But if it's not racist on its face, that's called facially neutral law. Then if you can prove that it has any disparate impact on any community, and then you can prove that there's any intent whatsoever to create that disparate impact, that's also unconstitutional. So I can't think of a single law in modern day today in America that is either on its face racist or that's facially neutral but is intentionally causing disparate impact.
So, okay, let me throw this out here because me and Lee had like a long conversation. I think that should have been streamed just for that conversation. So when we're talking about systematic racism, so what about me and you walk into a store and I'm getting followed around just because of my color? Or we'll use another example of me or you applying for the same apartment. My rent might be higher, like $100 or $50, and then yours might be less, only based on your the color of your skin. Do we feel like that exists too? And we'll go across the board with that. Lola?
I think everyone can attest that exists or it has happened to them in some shape, form, or fashion. I've had it happen to me looking for apartments in, let's say, a different class neighborhood. I've seen that happen. There's been too many studies and documentaries on systemic racism that starts with, small rules that end up having large impacts because it trickles down, or rather, it trickles up. It starts as just a small little provisional policy, and then you can see how it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger to the point we're talking about systems of whole nations from small things. So, for instance, let's say, take property ownership and acquisition. There's small little policies, for instance, with let's say, I forgot the name of the culture of when you can pass down a property only to certain ethnicities. It's written in the code that property can only be sold to someone of a specific ethnic group. It's still on the books even now. I forgot what it's called, but it is still practiced to this day. Meaning some properties, for instance, in my state, you would have to be Korean to actually be able to apply to buy that property. Other than that, it's written that that property has to go to certain people.
Can you pull that up? Because that would be unconstitutional. So, like, for instance, if you were tempted to buy that property, they wouldn't be allowed to prevent you from purchasing that property if you're not Korean.
Well, what my point is not so much something is let's say systemic. My point is there's a lot of small things that end up in making extreme impacts on society, and that's, at least from a cultural standpoint, how we internalize the word systemic. Because when I hear systemic, I hear something that affects everyone to a large degree. And there's certain things that only affect certain groups of people to a large degree that only they can see. So someone like yourself who is outside of a certain culture and a certain ethnic group and outside of certain conversations, frankly, you may not see what we see just simply because of your position. Otherwise, you may see things we don't see simply because of your position. But as it relates to like the law system in and of itself, it's like, for instance, someone of African American descent can do the same thing. They can, get property acquisition and pass it down to someone that only has a certain ethnic group. However, most African Americans have trouble acquiring loans to even get that system started to take advantage of it. So therefore, it doesn't affect us in a positive way. It usually affects us in a negative way mostly. So that's not to say that that's anybody's fault per se. Like, that's not your fault. That's not my fault.
Okay. So there's a couple of things here, though.
Issue, but it does affect people on a larger scale, even though it's a small thing in essence.
So there's a couple of things. You're saying people are putting in like their inheritance. Oh, my property is only going to be devised to people of colors in perpetuality. First of all, when you devise property, you could devise it to whomever you want if you're the owner of it. So anyone of any race. Second of all, you're not allowed to say into perpetuality. So there's something called the rule against perpetuities, which means that when you devise property, you cannot determine how the property is going to be used beyond 20 years within a life and being. So you could say like you could devise your property to your heirs. You could devise your property to, you could say like to Sally for life, so long as she doesn't give it to, let's say, a Jewish person. But then if she attempts to give it to a Jewish person, then it goes to Hector. That would be not allowed. So that would not be allowed for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you specifically devise stating that your purpose is not to give to a race, that is actually something that would be stricken based off rules of devising. But you are allowed to be trickier with it. Like, you can say like, you're not allowed to give it to people with earlocks, for instance, because that wouldn't be on its face racist. But there are rules set out even in devising in which you're not allowed to be racist like that. And then also you can't keep the property beyond 20 years of a life. So, and then as for loans, there's actually been several things passed in the Obama era. It's a huge reason why the housing crisis happened, where they made it very accessible to get loans. And then they tried to make it specifically accessible for Black and Hispanic people to get loans. So written into the laws right now, they try to make it easier for people of color to get loans.
Lauren, with all due respect, I think everyone is allowing you to speak simply out of respect and not out of a sense of understanding exactly what you're talking about. Because people, when they listen, they're listening from their personal walk with applying for loans. As far as the Obama administration and loans and making things accessible, there's so many different facets that affect why people even want loans. And during the Obama administration, everyone of, let's stop saying color, let's just say Black people, because I'm not Asian and they're of color. Okay, so I don't want to speak for them. At least in my community, that section of time did not help us in terms of business growth and loans. Don't get me wrong, a couple of people started businesses, but most of them failed. So I'm not going to tout that as some big historical moment for Black people. I'm not.
I would love to attack that point as well. The housing market crashes at that time was actually banks taking advantage of a bunch of poor people. That's what it was. It wasn't nothing about giving people opportunities. They was putting people in homes that they couldn't afford, knowing they didn't have the FICO scores or credit or.
But why?
But why? To make more money.
No, because Congress, right? It was because Congress actually, and assisted by the Obama administration, passed legislation requiring banks to give out more loans. So you're saying that
you're conflating the issue, right? Again, if we wanted to play racism again, I'll put it on the systems and the people, right? So if we wanted to play racism into the housing market again, why is it that they were giving predatory loans to people who couldn't afford them and not giving them to the people that had the money?
And that happened before the Obama administration. The subprime mortgage crash happened during the Bush administration.
Right. I was going to say that.
They were giving loans out to people who couldn't afford them because they were required to give out more loans under statute. And then they were told that they were going to be backed by the government. So then they started selling.
The crisis happened prior to the Obama administration.
So because we were backed by the government, then they started selling a lot of these loans and they felt free. And then they would sell that debt to third parties. And then those third parties would sell those bundles and create larger bundles and sell them to fourth parties. And then that created a bubble, and then the bubble collapsed. And there's a really great movie on this. I'm blanking on the name right now. Not the Wolf.
That happened prior to the Obama administration. That happened. I was in high school. Like that happened during the Bush administration.
It's like I said. It's just funny to me, right? It's like, why is it that only one side of the coin see racism and that it actually exists?
Because it only affects one side. That's why. People didn't start seeing it until it started getting filmed. It's always been here. It's just when it started getting filmed.
Right. For you to sit up there and say at the point to stop racism, let you know the reason why these things were enacted supposedly in Congress and in laws was to stop racism. So that should let you know that this country is built off racism from the beginning. If you have to enact laws to negate it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not necessarily true. So they're trying to fix something that they see as a wrong now. However, this country was
it wasn't wrong then, right? It wasn't wrong then?
I think that racism is always wrong. I just think that the way that the system and the world worked was very different back then. And to say that the country was built on a foundation of hatred and racism, I think it would be inaccurate.
No, that wasn't. I'm again. I
want to say something. So she used the word trickier, right? So I'm gonna explain something. She said trickier, right? It's like because this, when you get into the public administration aspect of it, right? You have what's written and you have how it's implemented, right? So something can be. So remember, laws prior to the Civil Rights Act were explicitly racist, right? It explicitly said race, black people, Negroes, mulattoes, all this other stuff like that, even out because in the
Before
Constitution,
the 15th
free for
Amendment.
human being, something like that. So even so now when you say trickier, right? So now you can reword something, but now what you get into the trickier part, which is a word you used prior,
I don't think I
is
used trickier. I think you misheard me. I
use the
don't
word
know.
trickier.
Yeah.
If we double back,
Yeah.
you use the word trickier.
What did I
I
say?
wrote it down.
When
wrote
did
it
I
down.
use
I wrote it
in a
down.
sentence?
You can
Can
use the word trickier. You said trickier, and you use it in the explanation of how something is implemented. And I wanted to make that point, right? So now, from a public administration standpoint, right? A law, once the law is passed, right? An executive order, a law, whatever you want to call it, right? Now it's up to public administrators now to implement the law and figure out how to work it into the system that's already in place.
Okay.
So now you can reword something, and then now it's all about so systemic, right? Because people will say, "Oh, well, it doesn't explicitly say that anymore," even though it doesn't explicitly say something, right? It could be racist in the way that it's now implemented. For
So that's
instance,
what I
right?
said. That's what I was trying to say earlier with the difference between facially racist versus facially neutral law. So if you have a law and it is facially neutral, but it has a disparate impact on people, and you can show that there was some sort of an intent to create that disparate impact, whether that be a previous law that one comes from that was specifically facially racist, or whether or not people who created the law and they have said things that are racist in the past, then then that law would be unconstitutional. So I
Okay,
can't
and so now
if you can tell
we have
me of one on the books today that is facially neutral, that has a disparate impact and was intended to create that disparate impact, I would love to know what that law is, and I would attempt
absolutely.
to.
What is the only
Okay.
what is the only case in which slavery is legal? Mind you, you interrupted me when I was speaking. So what is the only case in America constitutionally where slavery is legal?
What's the only case?
Yeah, right. When
There is,
is slave
there's no
when
case.
is it written into law where slavery is legal?
When a person becomes a
Well,
felon.
I think what you're trying to say is the 13th Amendment allows for people to be given unpaid wages if they are currently in detainment. Is that what you're referring to? The 13th
Yes.
Amendment?
Not trying.
Okay.
I'm saying it.
So,
And it says that. It says slavery is
other
slavery. It uses the word slavery. It uses the word slavery in the case of incarceration, right? So boom. So that's where slavery was now retooled. And then now who was disproportionately incarcerated after the Emancipation Proclamation? Black people. So vagrancy laws, right? Vagrancy laws were created after 1865, right? It was like most states started enacting vagrancy laws. Well, who were the vagrancy laws made?
1865.
So I understand that you watched the movie The 13th. I think we all
No,
have.
no. But
Oh, he said he never watched the movie 13.
I never watched it. I already said that.
This is like this all derives from this movie and this concept that that policing was founded in racism, came from slave catchers, and like this has all been widely disproven. There's several documentaries like that have shown that policing has actually further.
I actually have a I actually have a degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in public administration. So this is not.
Great. I have a degree in law, and I have a juris
I didn't watch a
doctorate.
movie. Yeah, fine.
Okay.
That's fine. But I didn't watch a movie. You keep saying, "Oh, you must have watched this movie," and I'm telling you, I never saw the movie.
This idea comes from like a group that are. Oh shoot! I'm trying to blank her name. I'm blanking on her name. She's from Harvard.
That doesn't mean anything.
But she wrote this law review article called Abolitionist Constitutionalism, and she is part of a group, and they believe this, and they have perpetuated a lot of ideas which have now become popular in modern day culture, and are also being taught in schools. This article was written I think in the 80s, like it's an old article, and they've been teaching this in schools for a while, especially criminal justice. I know I read that article twice while I was in law school. And I just think, and then I've seen a lot of proof showing that paperwork is kind of BS, showing that a lot of that is not based in reality. And historically, it's just not true. They base a lot of the foundings of policing on after the American slave trade, when actually the foundings of policing came before America was even founded.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. Time out. We're gonna let Ricky go, then Soldier, because he finally squeezed it in here, and then we'll let Lee get a chance. Go ahead, Ricky.
Well,
And then
tell me, do I sound better now?
Oh yeah, you're good, man.
Okay.
Yeah, Ricky still lead.
So let's use a case study, right? So with Rick Ross and Compton in the Contra trials, right? Did not the U.S. government import cocaine into southern L.A.?
Yes.
Is that a fact, or did that come from a movie?
Well, I think the FBI.
Nope. Please just answer the question. Nope, I don't want none of your rhetoric. Please just answer the question. Is that something that happened? Yes or no?
Is
that something that happened? Yes or no?
Okay.
Is that something that happened? Yes or no?
I get to answer my question how I answer the question.
It's a yes or no question, please.
Do you want my answer? Yes or no? Do you want my answer? Because I'm not going to give you.
I want a yes or no answer so I can finish my point.
Well, then I'm not going to give you. Go ahead, you make your point without my answer.
Okay, awesome then. So again, I know I'm not going crazy, right? So why is it not realized that the law can be changed and manufactured for a certain type of person or race to go to jail with more time than others, when at the time of the Iran-Contra scandal, when they was bringing in drugs to Compton, and at that point, they implemented the super crime laws, and black people got more time for drugs than white people did?
Because what the government was doing at that time was highly illegal. It was against the law. It was unconstitutional. Racist. It was racist. Yes, what the FBI and the CIA did, racist, because individuals.
You're in the wrong three-letter agency.
Like, for instance, the FBI targeted Martin Luther King. Like, they hated Martin Luther King and wanted to bring him down. So to act like individual members, Joe Biden's a racist. The current president of the United States a racist. So you want me to sit here and tell you everybody in the United States government is not racist?
That's not what I said. Again, you're so focused on getting your point off. You're so focused on getting your points off. Again, at the very beginning, I told you the person itself is not inherently racist. The system is.
Systemic, right? Etymologically speaking, it comes from the Greek word systema, right? Like the root word, right? It's the system. The system.
All right, Soldier. Soldier, are you back? You have anything to say, sir?
Okay, so I'm just gonna go back to the only thing that I wanted to actually, before attacking some of this, I think we as people of color in general need to clarify that there's a difference between prejudice and racism.
Yes.
That's something that's never really necessarily done, and that's why you dance into rhetoric arguments with conservatives about the intent of something or someone's intent. Like, intent is necessary for racism to actually be there. That begins it. But now, as far as the Joe Biden being a racist, and maybe so, because I mean this comes back to the 1994 crime bill that's pretty, and yeah, there were a lot of people that were specifically with the crime bill, and if you want to say that was strategically a racist thing, I think one thing that needs to actually be pointed out, at least from my perspective, is that a lot of systemic racism is less about a person's color, more or less class. Now, there is a lot of over-policing that tends to affect African Americans or people of color because we are largely in a lower tax bracket. So urban communities, ghettos, they usually are over-policed. So you find inequitable outcomes in laws that are on their face neutral. The concept sounds pretty, but then you see weed laws where
The
black
implementation.
people get
Have you
20 more
watched,
years than white.
have
Even
you
though,
watched any of like the Jesse Waters on the street when he like goes into Harlem and Compton and he asks people, do you want more police or less police? And almost every citizen in these, really dense city areas want more police.
okay, so here, I'm going to attack that for you because you're absolutely right. Most people want more police because then if I have a police officer there, I'm less likely to get robbed. Okay, that's common sense, right? It's not necessarily that people don't want police. They don't want bad police. That's where you have your issue. They don't want a police officer that has this inherent idea that because they are in a low income area that these people are violent, that these people deserve to get tased 100 times, or they need to be abused in some sort of way, or because I'm afraid of them, I need to behave as if these people are inherently going to cause me harm. That's more or less of your issue. We don't want people outside of our community trying to police our community if you're afraid of our community. You see how that becomes less of an issue? We want more cops. Nobody is gonna no logical person is going to tell you that I don't want police in my neighborhood and assume that that means that crime isn't going to come with less police. That's obvious. When there are more police, less people, you're less inclined to do criminal things. I mean, I'm speaking as somebody that's been arrested a couple times. I can tell you, you're less likely to go to areas where there are police. But obviously, speaking as somebody that has been on both sides of this, I don't want somebody that's just going to look at me and assume that if I'm licensed to carry a gun, that I'm a criminal and I need to be shot, or because if they pull you over and you have a licensed firearm, they're not going to shoot you first. They're not going to assume the need to shoot you, but they are me. So that is where you have an issue. You are comfortable with your police. We are not comfortable with ours because we can't seem to get police that don't have some sort of inherent bias.
Shout out to Alabama.
I think that the issue with policing in urban areas versus rural areas, like rural areas, you're going to be able to meet your community. There's going to be more police officers per average community. You're going to be able to get to know your neighbors. You're probably going to live among your neighbors, know more of them. In urban areas, it's so densely populated. Violence is nonstop. The police officers are under constant threat. It's the type of policing that you have in urban areas versus rural areas, and it has absolutely nothing to do with racism. The fact that police officers in urban areas are more on guard and maybe more quick to react has nothing to do with skin color of the residents. It has everything to do with the fact that they're in a densely populated area with a lot more crime, a lot more mentally ill, a lot more homeless, a lot more guns, and they don't know the people that they're dealing with.
The criminal element.
Yeah, let Lola go, then Soldier, then we'll get Lee to chime in.
Let me say something to your point, and then I'm going to tie it into what she just said. In where I grew up at, okay, there's places even the police know they don't go unless they call there. Okay, like don't go in there unless you're called there. That's how serious it is. Here's the thing. Even within the police department, the police know that the black police, when they fire their firearm, if it should hit someone, they stand to lose their job and or get punished more so than a white police officer. I have literally seen on my block black police officers stopped in their cars by white police officers and told to get on the ground, and all of them had badges on. And I didn't know what was going on. And I've seen this several times. And they were sitting up here like, we're at work, what are you doing? And other police had to be called to verify that these were really police because, they were not, because of what else. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody pulled their badges out and their Glocks, and it's like, why are we sitting here? It's because white police felt that, well, the black police blended in with the community, therefore they must be dangerous. So to your
How
point,
do you
when
know?
it
Did
comes
you
to
ask them?
police being in the neighborhood and not so much being a matter of number of police, but police that are inherently biased and literally afraid of the people they're supposed to be protecting, this leads to more accidents. This leads to more lockups. This leads to just more lives just lost, just in so many different forms. But to your point, Lauren, kind of skimming off of that point about just policing and it just being more crime in a particular area. Let me tell you something. I used to work on a unit for basically I was an intern, and I was interning with someone who owned a company for a bail bondsman where essentially they pick up bodies, okay, at night. And I shadowed them for about a month. And I'll tell you something. When those guys go out at night to pick up people that, dangerous people that the courts are looking for, people that got warrants for them, they typically pack extra magazines for black men, particularly. I know that. I've watched them do it. So when you say, well, you don't think, that's fine. But a lot of us here have actually seen it in the flesh.
Okay,
So
did you
can't
stop?
theoretically take your word for it because we've seen it in the flesh. This is the difference that Deuce was saying, that we know this because we've experienced this. Therefore, it looks a lot different from our end when we see exactly what we're talking about, and you're theoretically theorizing on what it is from your position. That's the difference.
I have two questions. So when you saw the white officers pull over the black officers, did you stop and ask the white officers mid-arrest what their intent was and if they knew that these, like, for instance, we have no idea what the story is. I don't know what your story is. I don't see a news article in front of me. I don't know if these were people pretending to be officers who happen to be black.
Was she need to be fair? Just to be fair to that point, would she need to bring in a news article to explain her experience? And Soldier just said, hold on, I'll just add this. And Soldier just explained he was on both sides of the fence. He was a criminal at one point, and he's a law-abiding citizen. So
I think
need
if
to
we're
bring up
using things like specific data,
If you're the military element, because that's how we go with next.
I would like to know what the intent was. So, like, behind her story, I'm not saying that her story didn't happen, but what if that news story proves, oh, okay, well, those actually weren't police officers. Those were people pretending to be police officers and that. So, like, we don't know what the reason was. I'm not saying that I don't believe her. What I'm saying is I don't know what happened. And then as for, like, putting more ammo for black people, okay, did we stop and ask why we put more ammo? Maybe that was a specific... Maybe when they were...
Let me answer your question. You're asking the same question over and over again. Yes, you know why I know? Because I was dating one of the guys that was doing that. That's how I know. And I asked him, why are you doing that? And he said, because he looks like a big, black, ugly black guy. That's how I know. And that's just, hold on. And that's just in my personal circumstance, to the point of the police officers that was stopped. This happened so many times. There's not even enough conversation or articles to sit and write every single time. But let me tell you how close I was to this. My house was 10 feet from where they were all laying at. And I was there just watching along the rest of the black people on that block. And this happened over time, meaning for years. I see police officers do this to one another. My point is, if there is systemic racism within the police department, you can guarantee that that trickles outside of the police department. And most police will tell you that, yes, when you notice black people make a mistake and shoot somebody, they typically can't get away with, oh, I thought they were dangerous. Usually the black person has to incur some sort of punishment as a result of firing his firearm, which is the reason why he was given that firearm. However, amongst white police officers, it does not happen as frequently, let alone as severely. And even I can see that just Googling different cases, but I actually have watched it in my neighborhood with my own eyes from a child. I've seen worse things than that, mind you. But these are the things that I'm used to seeing. So when somebody says, well, I need to know what was the intent, you'll never know the intent unless you were sitting there and you've seen someone get their head blown off by the police, or the police get their head blown off by someone else. Like, you'll never know unless you're sitting there, but in your position, you'll never see that. And I mean, you should be thankful, but I would caution you in trying to force people like myself to show you our articles in order for you to understand that there's something going on. Because honestly, people get tired of having to talk like this to people like yourself just for you to say,
Well,
you know what, there might be something going on here.
I just want first.
Oh, okay.
Fuck that. We outside. We ain't in the bushes. We outside.
First of all, I just want to avoid anecdotal data for the specific purposes of not hurting feelings, because I'm not saying that I don't believe you. I'm just saying that, like, I need to know more facts to the story, and I don't have those facts because I don't know what the story is.
So
Hey, personal question, Lauren. Personal question. In your opinion, when did America stop being racist?
I don't want you to long struggle, but I want to make sure Lee get time into conversate. Go ahead,
I
dude.
have one question. When did systemic racism or systematic racism stop in America? When did it stop, in your opinion?
I think that the laws in America were no longer racist after the 14th Amendment was implemented and enforced.
What year was that?
Oof. I don't know. I should know. I don't know.
We all got Google on these computers.
Let's see.
Yeah, I'm abusing Google right now. Appreciate you. Soldier, your mic is chopping up, bro. Lee, do you want to chime in real quick?
Yeah, I'll try to squeeze in here.
All right.
There's so many things that I'd like to.
I just want to ask a question. When did she still, like, systemic racism stop in America?
Well, let me counter that question. When does racism stop?
She didn't answer it yet. She didn't answer it. I want to answer the question.
Hold on. Let me use my phone to look up. Well, it's hard because after the 14th Amendment, I don't know if there is like a specific year. What I can say is that there were certain laws that were enacted.
The 14th Amendment in the United States Constitution was adopted on July 9th, 1868 as the amendment.
And then
So,
obviously
Counsel,
you have.
you said you think it stopped. You think systemic racism stopped after 1860?
No, because obviously you still had like Board v. Brown, right, in 1960, and that was clearly a case over racism where they were not allowing Black students into white schools.
Brown versus Board of Education, the Civil Rights Act, 1964, 1958, 1968,
So to
1969.
say that racism was no longer in the laws in the 1860s.
Fair Housing Act, 1970.
Okay. So I would say
14th Amendment. That's what you said.
I would say we said separation, but equal is not equal. So that decision, I would say, and then we started enforcing that, then racism was no longer in the books.
What year? What day? When?
I'd say like the 1970s.
1970. Oh, okay. You went from 14. You went from 14th Amendment to 1970s, like 100 years.
Well, no,
so your initial thought was 1865,
and enforced.
100 years.
I specifically said fully enacted and enforced. So you could say that the 14th Amendment wasn't totally enforced until the Brown decision, because that decision was based on the 14th Amendment. So to say, so like for instance, a lot of the separation of water fountains, separation of trains, all of the Jim Crow laws, that was a violation of the 14th Amendment. And so once we determine that separate but equal is not equal, right? Then I would say that was when we got rid of racism. That was the full enforcement of the 14th Amendment.
So if the 14th Amendment was enacted in 1860. In 1860s, right?
1868.
And then it took another 100 years for it to be implemented, right? So be enforced.
Yeah, fully enforced.
Fully enforced, right? So that means that laws don't change minds, right? Laws don't change. Like there's other laws that made.
You don't think that we've progressed as a nation? You don't think that we've changed minds? You don't think, I mean, look at how small the Ku Klux Klan is. It still exists. It's still an organization. You can still sign up if you want. I mean, maybe not you. I don't know if they'll allow you or me. I'm Jewish.
I mean, I can't. Can I join the Ku Klux Klan? That seems pretty.
A lot.
Can you?
Time. Technically, now we just moved the goalpost just a little bit because I'm not sure. I mean, I would love to see. I would love to fill out application to see how that works, though. I would love to see that one. But Lee, go ahead, bro. Then we'll let Ricky and Soldier. Are you applying for the Ku Klux Klan, Lee? Then
I'll try to get this in there.
Are you applying for
there's a couple things I'd like to address, and one of them being that going back to the CIA case with the Coke, it wasn't just in the communities, in black communities, it was all poor communities. Appalachian Mountains come to mind, and they're all predominantly white people, but they were targeted just because of their economic status. The system itself has been rigged for taking from the lowest class that they can. Same thing with the banking systems. That's the easiest target for them to take out, and it doesn't matter what color you are. It's an economic class. It happens to predominantly in areas to be mostly black, but I will use, as I said, like the Appalachians and anything, they were treated no differently, and they still aren't today. That's very much treated like shit there. The same thing with their policing and everything. It's a direct 1-to-1. So when it comes to that, it's more to it than just color. It's the parasites that are up on the very top, whom use, I will say us in the lower classes, to further their systems. We're nothing more than free-range sheep or chickens for them to collect the eggs or the wool from. We do the work, they rake in the money. And as if you notice, like, and then we're talking about the banking crisis and stuff, when they were giving out loans, they knew those loans were going to fail. They knew absolutely. But they bundled them up, made a shit ton of money out of it. And on top of it, they got bailed up by the government, plus they got to keep the property.
And they implemented, and then after that, they also implemented new laws, right, to protect themselves from such things.
Absolutely.
Persecution from the laws that they broke.
Absolutely. And that's some of the things I think a lot of people are missing, that this type of thing goes beyond race, and it isn't just in this country. It's worldwide. If the past 3 years haven't shown people that, then they need to take a look at what's really going on in the world and not just our little place. There's stuff being implemented now that's just atrocious. For example, I'm on a panel that I go to quite frequently. They can no longer talk against their government there, or they can be arrested and jailed in a Western first world nation.
What nation is this?
Australia.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying. A lot of the things that we're talking about. Okay.
It's a largely homogenous society.
Pardon?
A largely homogenous country.
Yeah.
Australia.
Well, no, I wouldn't call Australia largely homogenous. Not
it's largely homogenous. Like the Aboriginal population is very small in Australia. I've been to Australia.
Yeah, it's very small. But I'm talking in general. Anybody. So,
I mean, yeah, but the United States is, in the context of this, the bigger picture, the context of this conversation, like Australia and the United States are very different. So, like, what is your point between?
Yes, they are very different, but in the same token, they're not that far different. What I'm speaking of when we're talking about systemic and systems and things like that, how they're inherently biased, as we see. But as we notice, it's the same old tricks, bread and circuses.
Yeah,
we're arguing over semantics.
Yeah.
When it comes to, well, what color was this guy because of this, or what was this person's reason for this, or what was that? When you look at it, and as I said, in the even the banking crisis, it wasn't just black people; it was the lower classes.
It's rich versus
which includes all races. All races.
Right. It is not about color. They try to separate us by color. It is rich versus poor. Go for the money.
Well, it's
people.
They try to separate it. They try to separate it. They were trying to
time out. Go ahead, Lee. I couldn't hear you.
it isn't rich versus poor. I go against that. It's the super rich, the head of corporations that predominantly, if you look at statistically speaking, they're the ones that get laws passed in this country, in many other countries. Versus
use of lobbyists and stuff. Yep, you're right.
Yeah, and versus how much the people actually need, whether it doesn't matter, because we lose out in the end anyway, and they always get their way, and we're seeing that right now. But we're so intent on finding something else to blame with the things that are going on that we're not looking at the true problem. It isn't that us here as people. Now, if we want to talk about racism in general as a bias, yeah, it exists. It exists in all countries and every place. It always will to some extent. But to say that it's predominantly what's going on in our nations and in our communities today, those are just little things in the big cog of what's going to happen. And I think Ricky has something to say. He's got his finger up.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to definitely agree with that. So with that being said, right, why are we continue to vote and try to save and find justice in systems that take advantage of us, the little guys, right? Why are people still trying to defend those stances if it's just when those very systems was created by the super rich?
And that's the exact thing that I'll address real quick. Okay. When I talked about a few days ago on one of my panels, and Grey Pill can to attest to this, I've always been about trying to use logic and talk to people and speak to them in a manner that you would normally in day to day. You know, like I'm anti-jab and all this stuff, because I don't believe a government should be telling you something like that. But the problem I have now is they've created another class that can be discriminated against. We're now the dirty people. We're the conspiracy theorists. We're the dumb people, or any number of other labels. Or here's a good one. I'm a white supremacist because I don't believe in it. Now, how absurd can you get? But that's what they're doing. And it just creates another division and another point of argument. And as Ricky says, and I'll address what he was saying about as that system, the idea of a constitutional republic is sound. Our problem is our government has been pissing all over the Constitution for so long that it's become a normalcy. We need to get back to that. And it doesn't matter what your color is. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what your gender preferences are or anything like that. We need to get back to the constitutionality and hold politicians accountable. And what that does mean is we need to speak up as one, not as blacks, not as whites, not as pinks, purples, browns, whatever. I could give a shit about that. But we need to speak up as one and hold them accountable. Mm-hmm. And I mean hold them accountable. And when somebody comes out and you got somebody in the street with the screaming memes, it used to be you just let them have their thing and do their way. No more. I will shut my mouth no more. I will crawl so far up their ass, they won't know where I stop and they begin. And I'm not normally that way. And Gray can attest to this. But it has to happen because the Western nations right now are pushing for things that people would not believe exists because we're so blinded by so many other things. And the idea of this that we're sitting here talking about right now is nothing in the grand scheme of things.
I wouldn't agree with that, but at the same time, the constitutional idea sounds great, but in the grand scheme of things, that's not a good majority of people that say we want to get back to the constitutional stance of things are largely, in my mind, hypocritical because at the same time, we want to get back to the constitutional norms, but we also want to tell people what we want the government to tell people to do what we believe is right. Like,
and that's the problem.
The whole debate.
Hold on. You're absolutely hitting on the problem. It isn't
I'm hitting on the issue of the same people that say that are the same people that say that the abortion issue, we have to have a stance on that that's largely against the constitutional quote unquote stance that a good majority of people are talking about. Because if we're saying that it's constitutional, if we want to go to the constitutional stance of that, you don't have a stance. There isn't one. But there's a grand majority of people that are spitting that out are saying that, yeah, we should have a stance. There should be a ban on it because we don't believe in it. Now, regardless of your religious stance on that, now that would be going into a completely different topic, but I don't like it because we'll say that these race issues are minimalistic and we want to focus on this or focus on that. This is the real argument. Yeah. But then when it's just going to lead us to a different argument that you're going to say is the same thing. We're just going to run into the same problem. It's just going to be different. Now it's just going to be split between religion, or it's going to be split between color. It's going to be
you're seeing
between
my point,
class.
when I say,
it's just going to always be something.
You're making
so you're never going to get away from that.
Hold on, Soldier. Let him go. Let him go ahead, Lee. What you say?
You're making my point. You're making exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to issues that should not be determined by government. That what a person's choice is should not be determined by government. Period.
Somebody chooses to blow your house up, you looking for the government to enforce the law. So don't say that.
No. That's a different story. We're talking about land of laws versus a land of opinions.
I mean, somebody has an opinion to do something to you. They have a right to exercise whatever force they feel like they have, but there are consequences to that, and you expect
absolutely.
So my thing is, if we're gonna drag the government, let's drag the government based on why we should be dragging the government. Let's just not openly drag the government.
Well, no. What I'm saying is we shouldn't be dragging the government anywhere. We need to live by the laws that were put forth.
But Lee, I think Black people specifically Black people fully understand the need to live by the law. It's white people, honestly, that are just coming to this realization within the last 100 years, despite the fact we've been here for thousands of years. So it's like you can say that well, it's not about color. At the end of the day, it might not be about as much color anymore, but for the vast majority of history that we know, it's been about color. And now that it's trickled over to your side. Now
wait.
Convenient.
I'm just saying, like, and I'm not negating your point to which it's true, right? That there are certain things that are not race related, it's class related.
But hold on here.
But when I say over being profiled, I knew it was a class issue, right? But to your point, when it comes to things not being race based, two things can be true at the same time. There can be a race issue and a class issue and a business issue.
I'm not disagreeing on that point. What I'm saying is these things are being used as focal points to keep people divided, and it keeps people arguing over things that aren't going to fix the inherent problems.
I think most people
if the only thing you can see when it comes to something is race, and not the fact that it's based on more than just race, we're never going to get it fixed because there's going to be so many people out there arguing over that one part of it and not the whole.
But Lauren, actually addressing one part doesn't mean they can't see anything more.
I like him. I agree with you a lot, Lee. Just out of curiosity, do you consider yourself to be a sovereign? Do you consider yourself to be a libertarian? What do you consider yourself?
I consider myself to let's get this shit back to the way law is supposed to be.
So sovereign.
Not by opinions, not by feelings, not by anything else that comes to that. Our Constitution was written very well.
Games on YouTube.
Really? Because I think the Constitution definitely says that Black people are 3/5 of human being.
Well, hold on. I didn't say it was perfect, guy.
Yeah,
That's what I said.
Technically, racism is constitutional
But hold on.
right.
Whoa. Back up,
because you
please.
can't govern somebody to be around people that they don't want to be around. Like that, honestly, if we're getting down to what is actually technically constitutional, to tell a small business owner that they have to service black people is unconstitutional in itself. So to say that this document is so
Well written.
like it's well written, like that is
Well,
asinine.
So is the paper protecting us, or is it fighting against us? I'm confused.
It's like it depends on the way that you look at it. Like, are there good parts of it? Yes, there are good parts of it. But
actually, Soldier, so the 14th, so that you actually can mandate restaurants to service black people. It is part of the commerce.
A mandate is not a law, Lauren. You should know that. A mandate is not a law. It's a suggestion.
No, you are like, okay, so under the Commerce Clause, the Congress is allowed.
Are we talking constitutional, or are we talking UCC?
Constitutional.
Okay, so how can you say commerce when it comes to Constitution?
When they wrote the Constitution, they had slaves.
The Commerce Clause is a Constitution.
No, what I'm saying is commerce and constitutional are two totally different things, sister.
I understand that you're talking about the UCC contracts, which is
he was asking you which one you're deciding. He was asking which one you decided.
So I'm talking about the Commerce Clause of the Constitution.
Okay.
Under the Commerce Clause of the Constitution, Congress has the ability to regulate commerce within the United States and make laws that have an impact. Laws that regulate things that have a substantial impact on interstate commerce, as long as the commerce is over multiple states. And that's what the Commerce Clause of the Constitution is about. So because of that, they're able to regulate commerce, so they could require hotels, restaurants, and such to allow black people and any other race to be able to stay there, because otherwise that would violate black people's constitutional right to travel.
Technically, that's not true. Technically, all that says is that you have to have something available. It doesn't mean that this particular small business has to do this.
And that
just means that there has to be something.
And that will fall under.
The Constitution was written in 1787, and then we had to have an Emancipation Proclamation in 1865. We got like almost 90 years of like, and the fathers were like the people that wrote the Constitution did not apply this to black people when they owned them. You know what I'm saying?
Hold on a second here, Deuce. I want to address something when it comes to this. Has black people in this country went from the idea of slavery, and not all black people were slaves. Okay.
In what year?
At the advent of this country.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the first.
Not all black people were slaves.
Oh, we're gonna hear this.
Owner in America.
Hold on.
All right.
What I'm saying is,
whatever you say.
As we move through the progression of the United States, other people. I mean, it used to be just white men that have the right to vote and do other things. And now it's women, now it's black people, now it's this, now it's that. We're progressing to where those intents and purposes and rights are applied to everybody. Is it a perfect system? No, there will never be a perfect system. But to keep us moving forward, we need to expand those rights to everybody.
I agree to what you're saying, Lee, and let me chime in on this one. I agree
with when you say stuff like what it was intended for, right? So it's like, what was it intended for? If the people that wrote it specifically didn't intend it for people, that you can't go off of the intention, right? So you have to sit there.
I'm not talking about who they intended for. I'm talking the intention of.
The intention of, right? The intention other than the people that wrote it.
Have we not been applying this to more and more people of the population every step of this country?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm getting at, is expanding these ideas and these ideals out with the rights and everything. And the Constitution doesn't give our rights. The Bill of Rights doesn't give us our rights.
Your rights come from God.
Your rights are inherently born unto you. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights are only there to limit the government, not to limit the people. That's where a lot of people have that backwards.
Hold on, Ricky. Can you say that with a straight face? Because I don't think I heard you correctly. You said the Constitution came from where?
No, I said your right
No, he
from
said
God.
your rights come from God.
Your rights.
I don't necessarily agree with that either, but
You don't have to.
nevertheless.
But again, if y'all believed in the Constitution the way y'all said y'all do, y'all understand that no other man can govern you.
Absolutely.
That's not what the Constitution says.
What are you talking about? The Republic is about man governing themselves.
Okay,
This is not,
like where in the
let
Constitution?
me
does it
finish
say-
my point, please. The Constitution is a Republican Constitution. The Republic, men are responsible for themselves. We are under a democracy where no matter what's right or wrong, as long as the fools vote for it, that's what it is. The reason the government even exists for us to have this conversation is because men and women are not responsible.
All right. Laura has sent to Link. What do you sent me here, Lauren? Laura, you had screen share
Sorry,
something.
I was on mute. I'm on mute. Okay,
Very
here we
good.
go.
All right, what
Yeah,
is
so this is the Commerce Clause that I was referring to of the Constitution. And it gives Congress the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among several states, and with Indian tribes. So this gives.
We gotta click on that. You showing like a rough draft of it.
Oh, really?
That one thing we it was me.
There we go.
All right,
Is that
cool.
better?
Yes, thank you.
So this is the Commerce Clause of the Constitution. So essentially, now I'm not an attorney or anything, but and I'm really not. I'm not an attorney. But essentially, what
But you have a Juris Doctor.
I do. I went to law school. I'm still waiting on my bar results.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so essentially this clause allows Congress to make laws that regulate any activity that has to do with foreign nations, interstate commerce, or between Indian tribes. So for instance, like going to war, Congress regulates the purse strings of the of war, essentially how like funding going to war. So when you said that that it is unconstitutional for Congress to, regulate people for Congress to regulate people or regulate private businesses or to force them to allow Black citizens, that would be not true. In fact, it would be in Article 1 of the Constitution, Section 8.
Okay. That was it?
Yep.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thoughts, comments, complaints, concern?
I mean, I don't know about y'all.
Was that for me to respond to?
I'm in my mid-30s. And all four of my grandparents are still alive. Thank God. I know that shit didn't apply to them. Like, so I don't know. Like, that shit don't mean shit.
So
right?
just
It's like,
so the way that maybe I'm trying to remember which case it was. I'm so bad at con law. There was a case specifically in which an African American couple went to try to purchase at a drive-through, and they were denied because Black citizens were not allowed at this drive-through, and they sued on the grounds that it was unconstitutional under this. And
around what year is that? Do you remember?
No, I don't.
Early 2000s?
No, 19 something. So like, so if it didn't apply to your grandparents, it was probably because that case hadn't occurred yet. So
okay, so look how many people it happened to. But that one case changed it. So that's what I'm saying. People like to look at, but this case changed it all. It doesn't still change the fact that it applied to millions and millions of people, right? Like on an everyday basis. So this is what I'm saying. Systemic. Right back to our original point about systemic.
Hold on here though. And as the point I'd like to make out, we are progressing out of that to apply more and more rights to more people. And I'll ask this question: does the son pay for the sins of the father?
Yeah.
Should they? Yeah. Do they? Because here's why.
We got agreement. All right, good stuff, Lauren.
Here's why I would say yeah, because I mean, just like when he said this would not have applied to his grandparents, what opportunities were they denied that somebody else got that affected their financial situation for their children, then
what I'm saying is, do we stop
their
progression?
children and their children.
You're conflating something in the direction that I'm not speaking of.
Yes, and Soldier, we got a complaint for chat. One chat said when you talking, keep that camera still, sir. You give him Vigoro, Vitiligo.
Vertigo.
One of them.
Vertigo.
Come on.
Vitiligo.
Oh my God.
Put your glasses on. The thing I'm pointing out is, if we don't progress as a society, and we're always going to go pointing back to the sins of our fathers, be it yours, be it mine, be whatever. If we want to point far enough back, let's start pointing our fingers at Africa. We can go that far back, where blacks were selling blacks. Are we going over there and we telling them that?
You know, there's more to that story, right? So I love that
I
narrative.
like when people go back that far because we don't want to go into the weeds of that. So if you want to go and have that conversation,
you see my point. Now that's my point. Are we going to take and keep and hold the son responsible for the sins of the father? Because if we're going to do that, we're in perpetuity walking back through the weeds instead of moving forward.
Well, how about this? If we're going to be fair about the timelines, because Lauren put one up for 1868, and then Deuce had brought back about, I think you said your grandparents. So we'll say maybe 100 years up to now. So 1900 up to now, or to 1868 up to now. So we can do that swing in that timeline. You know,
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let me ask you this: Have we not progressed forward?
Depend on what. The economy, as far as financial growth,
as far as race equalization.
Okay, and so in terms of, and
I'm not speaking equity, I'm speaking actual equalization.
Equalization, I would say, in some areas we have, right, but as the last couple of years have proven with police interaction, right, that has shown that has not changed in the last 170 something years.
I will say that it's not only changed, I think it's regressed.
No, I will actually agree with Lee Guitar Man, because it has gotten better, but it's not per se, in my personal opinion, due to the laws. It's because of intersex, because more people of different races are having sex and understanding that this is part of our family, so they start to move and think differently, right? But as far as the laws really haven't changed.
What I'll challenge is this: we've always had a problem with police in the community, right? Always, even going back to the civil rights era, right? Like when you see videos of civil marches, police hosing people down, sicking dogs on them, beating them and shit, right? We've had this.
Yeah, I have no clue what that's like.
Okay, but we still, so even back then in the 1960s, we're talking about police brutality, and we were talking about that all the way until now. And nobody believed us. And just that same narrative you're using, oh, it's gotten better, we've progressed, it's not like that anymore. And then now we get video cameras, and now millions of people watch the black man get his life snuffed out on television for everybody to see. The thing is, right, it's always happened, it's just now being recorded. So this is the thing we're telling y'all, like, yeah, things on the outside, right? And this is what Lauren was talking about, like things being on the face, right? Things being out there, written into law, right? Just black and white. It's not black and white. It's still implemented the same. It's just the laws say it differently, right? These things have always happened, and it's continued to happen for hundreds of years since the inception of this country. It's just that now it's getting recorded. It's now getting filmed. And
so
we're
what
seeing
you're saying to me is that it's going to move forward and it'd be addressed.
It'll be addressed
at some point.
That's not an answer. That is not an answer. It's still here. I saw that.
Our timeline.
I've experienced racism by the police. I've experienced, first of all, stop and frisk was unconstitutional. I'm from New York. I lived through stop and frisk, right? Mm-hmm. Unconstitutional. It was unfairly implemented in the black community, and that's why it was shut down. But it was unfairly implemented in the black community, and I experienced that myself. And at the same time, we've also seen video after video of black people being targeted by police going outside of their protocols, unfairly policing black people, mistreating black people, and it's stuff that we've been saying for years. But everybody was like, yeah. Everybody says that. The same narrative. Oh yeah, no, it's not like that anymore.
Hold on here, though, but you're applying like that to the only people that have experienced that. And
We're the only people that
can attest to it.
We're
I
not the
know
only people
very
that
damn
experience
well.
it. We experience it. We always
damn
experience it.
well, damn well what it's like to be prejudiced by the police just because of what I look like.
I don't know what you look like. I don't know what your
I
attitude
know
looks like.
that.
I'm just telling you.
I'm very well aware of that.
That's
So-
the
But what I'm
problem.
saying is
with
to say that
anecdotal
it is any one thing.
It's not a
But
problem
other
with
people
angular.
can
Why do we
experience
have social justice reform today,
That
right?
other
Because
people
we're
can
now
experience
seeing that what we've been saying for generations is still happening today.
Correct.
That's why we have social justice reform.
And
That's
I'm
why we
not
have
going to disagree. I'm not disagreeing with you.
2023.
You're
Hold on.
saying that you were unjustly targeted by the cops. He's saying that he was a poor white male, and the cops can tell based off maybe what he was wearing or maybe from knowing him that he was a poor white male, and therefore he was also targeted. And so it wasn't necessarily based off being black, but you could if you're going to be using anecdotal experience to be proving racism, it is very difficult unless you can read the minds of the person who's hurting you, and you can tell for certain that they're doing it to you because of your skin color.
All right, time out. Ricky has to cut his time short, so and I appreciate everybody just using their time to come up on this platform and have this discussion. So I appreciate that. Ricky, sir, final thoughts, and I'm big about solutions, bro. So if you want to drop some solutions for people, and we could touch bases on that.
Oh, the solution is easy: destroy the system and build a new one. You know what I'm saying? And my final thoughts on this: for us to not acknowledge that there was inequalities in this thing, I think would be a bit obtuse, right? But to sit up here and say that, okay, we're catching up, we're making strides, depending upon the very people who are in charge, like Les said, the 1%, right? No matter what, no matter how you try to implement change, it's always going to be one end that's playing catch up. So you must like mustard. You see what I'm saying? So you have to destroy the system and build it up on a foundation of equality, which will never happen because the people are too afraid. So that's all I got. But y'all take care, be easy, be happy in your lives, man. Take care of your loved ones.
Nice
man.
meeting you, man.
All right, well said. And then there were 6.
I do think it's ironic that
It'll be like 2 hours max. We're good to go.
ironic
Just
that
make sure your time is will be well served here. Okay, so thank you.
I think it's ironic that he mentioned that the
off the pulpit for a minute. Let
Sorry,
the
am I
others.
not audible?
I'm sorry. What you say, Lead? I didn't hear you. Oh, okay. I guess he got stepped away. What did you say, Lauren? Because somebody got cut off. It was Lead and you was speaking at the same time, Lauren.
Yeah, I thought it was ironic that he was saying that the solution was a brand new system because, as I mentioned earlier, the people who had the group of ideas, constitutionalist abolitionism, their entire idea and their entire purpose is to get rid of the Constitution and start anew. And the premise is that the system is so corrupt and fundamentally racist that we have to start anew. So I do think a lot of his ideas come from this group, whether or not he was aware that this group was, part of his influencing.
Maybe coming to the.
Go ahead, Lola.
Okay. Okay. To be honest with you, right, I enjoy hearing different perspectives, right? But one thing that really grinds my gears and it turns me off from even listening to someone's opinion is when they take something that's so overt and they minimize it because one or two people they can point out had a similar experience to equate to the atrocities that have happened in human history that is unlike none other. And that right there is the reason why this racism will honestly stay in place. Even if the laws change, it will stay in place because, again, the laws aren't the issue we have. It's the people that are treating us a certain way is the issue we have. When I'm on this panel right now and someone says, well, there was black people selling black people. Meanwhile, the percentage of black people that had a chance to buy their own family members back from slave owners to keep them safe, and maybe others, maybe might be 1%. But we're gonna use that right there to make a statement that I still don't understand what is the point of that. And then we take it back to Africa. Now here's the thing. I don't mind talking about Africa and the slave trade there, and how the Portuguese came in and how they took advantage of the situation there, who owes who based on that. I don't mind that, but here's the thing: I'm not African. You understand? I'm here on Plymouth Rock. I'm not over there. I'm here. I got to deal with what's here, and dealing with what's here is me having these conversations right here, listening to people tell me that my great grandparents' experience really isn't all that, because we're making so much progress. Meanwhile, I can't really see where my people are that much progressed than my great grandparents in the grand scheme of things. And in fact, my great grandfather and all of his peers were richer than me and all of my peers are by bar none. And I mean, this is a very strange time we're living in, talking about progression. So it's like, if you're gonna have a conversation with people like myself, and you're gonna really, your purpose inside your heart space is to create that bridge and keep it there so that we can progress as a people, because that's what we're doing. Then what you have to do is respect history and respect our experience, because it is not the same. And Lee, I don't know what you look like, but I'm sure police did not look at you and say, oh my God, he makes less than 85 grand. Let's see what the color of his socks is. I highly doubt that. I just do.
You have no idea, like, why. So you just told us not to diminish.
Yes, I'm telling you that don't minimize what I've been through and my great grandparents, because one or two had something go down with them that could have been taken as something mean happened. Do not diminish the history of my people because of that. And that's what I'm hearing right now. And that's why my ears are having trouble turning on and off. Because if you're gonna sit there and say that, my only thing is I'm willing to let you stay in your ignorance. Like, because really your experience don't affect me at the end of the day. My people will still be dying at the rate they're dying, no matter if you understand or not. Your people, and like you said, you Jewish. I deal with Jewish people all the time. Trust me, your people are in a different situation, okay? Like, I really think that you should kind of walk a little easy on conversations when it comes to our suffering, because we try to tread lightly when it comes to your people. Real lightly. So I would expect for you to do the same.
What?
Yes, we tread lightly in even mentioning your names. We tread very lightly. So I would expect for you to do the same in terms of respect.
Okay. First of all, you went on this rant about how you didn't like our points because you thought they were racist because we mentioned history, and then you said we didn't respect history, and then you also conflated me and the only other white man on panel, and as if we both are one person.
You white me?
I did not, even though I did not mention Africa or the African trade slave, even though I thought that was a decent point that slave was embedded in racism. And then furthermore, plenty of white people were discriminated against.
Many white people were slaves. Oh, the Irish.
And yes, there were Polish, there were Jewish, and then also there were the non-white people such as the Japanese who were not black, but there was plenty of people who were discriminated against in America.
Are you really comparing? Are you really comparing the Japanese and indigenous servitude to chattel slavery? Are you really doing that?
His grandparents' experiences. So his grandparents had experienced my grandparents.
Okay, great, Bill. I'm gonna be honest with you right now. When she sits there and equates discrimination to someone looking at me and my people as 3/5 of a human being, right? That right there is disrespectful, and I'm
frankly, my family survived the Holocaust.
You're fine. We're closing. We're doing final thoughts anyway.
I'm tired of it. Like I'm really.
I don't care. I don't care what you're tired of. It's I'm sorry that you don't like facts.
They feel like that. They're open to feeling like that, but at the end of the day, I'm honestly tired of even talking to them about anything.
I'm sorry you're tired of facts.
When he says we're making progress, let me ask you, how much progress are we having when 100% of the people are looking like? Why do you have to equate chattel slavery?
Have you ever heard
discrimination?
Wait.
Like, why do you have to do that? Most people are not going to do that.
You don't think the Holocaust was that bad?
They're not. So at the end of the day, let her die in her ignorance. Okay? Seriously, your Jewish father should be ashamed.
Oh, you don't.
Hold on, time out. Go ahead, Deuce. Hold on. Go ahead, Deuce.
No, it's like,
okay,
Lauren, cool. Like you. So this is the thing, right? Like, it's like we have to be sensitive when you like like you pulled the Holocaust out like a trump card. Like I just want to say that's kind of disrespectful, right? It's disrespectful on both sides. Disrespectful to your own people. It's not the Holocaust is not a trump card for you to just pull out when you want to. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, what was more recent, the Holocaust or American slavery?
Okay, wait.
Oh my God, your family paid for that.
Let's play this game. I'll play a game. What was more recent? What was more recent? Subjugation of black people or the Holocaust?
Ignorant.
What was more recent? What was more recent?
The segregation of
what was the subjugation of black people in America or the Holocaust? What was more recent?
I would say the Holocaust.
The Holocaust was more recent when we had a Civil Rights Act of 1956, a Civil Rights Act of 1964, 65, 68, and the Fair Housing Act of 1970. Are you serious? So let's do this again. I'm going to ask you the question again. So ask you the question one more time. Ask the question one more time. What was more recent, the subjugation of black people in America or the Holocaust?
Give him a minute. Give him a minute.
Okay, so the Holocaust was in 1945.
Okay, and when was the Civil Rights Act? When was Martin Luther King assassinated? When was the Civil Rights Act?
So clearly, civil rights was still going on.
So clearly. So that should have been the first answer out of your mouth. Let's just get right there. Let's just get right there.
Like 20 years.
So don't put it. We're talking about something more recent. We're talking to your point. I'm still talking. To your point. We are talking about something more recent. I never brought up slavery, so we're not even bringing up slavery. So I said something more recent. Everything I'm bringing up stuff that's in the last 100 years, right?
Okay.
That's something.
About the last 100 years in America, which group of people are the most likely to experience a hate crime?
I said what I said.
In America today, 2022, 2023, which group of people are most likely to experience a hate crime?
Oh shit!
Black people. In my opinion, black people.
According
to opinion, or are we saying factual?
According to facts, Jewish people are most likely to experience hate crimes today in 2020.
So let's not play this game. So you want to invalidate stuff? I'll invalidate stuff right now. So when we talk about statistics, right? Statistics are based on reporting, right? There are things that are underreported. There's things that are misreported. So let's talk about the Unified Crime Report, right? And the UCR is which all police entities are encouraged but not mandated to participate in, right? This is the statistics that they give the FBI so that the FBI can come out with these yearly statistics that you like to spout, right? So the problem that they found with the United Crime Report, right? Unified Crime Report is that.
Comes from that?
Stop it! I'm talking. Don't interrupt me. The problem with the Unified Crime Report is it only reports what is reported, things that easily misreported, right? And so what they found is police names tend to misreport stuff so that they don't make their areas look bad. So you know what hate crimes things that they don't want their neighborhood look bad, bring down the property value, right? They do stuff like label this felony a misdemeanor, right? So that way when they look at a neighborhood, it's like, oh, there are no felony crimes here, just like simple vandalism, blah blah, when it's clearly a felony, but they'll plead it down to a different charge. So they found that the Unified Crime Report is not an accurate assessment of crime in any area. So don't sit there and spout statistics to me when I didn't see a Jewish person get snuffed out on YouTube and Facebook and on my cell phone a year and a half ago.
We could talk about George Floyd. So
I'm just saying, did you see a Jewish person? You know what I did? Did you see a Jewish person get killed on television by a police officer?
Actually, during COVID.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yes.
When?
During COVID in New York City.
During COVID. When? New York City. When?
Jewish people were specifically targeted, arrested.
Give me a name. Give me a name. Give me a name.
I don't recall the name.
Give me a name I can Google.
Okay, so wait.
George Floyd.
Hold on. So why am I the only one required to bring up reports? So because she was.
Hold on. Time out. Just to be fair, Lauren, you did bring up stats and statistics, so he's asking you to do the same thing.
Okay,
Yeah, so the fact that you said you couldn't remember a name, so now I have to throw that back at Deuce face. So Deuce,
what are we talking about?
So Deuce, just to be fair now, since you brought her, she clearly says she can't remember her name, but she says
okay,
that.
so we can move on. She stop interrupting me.
Okay, cool. So okay, hold on. So I'm gonna throw this pivot the same question to you. So can you recall a name or two maybe that a black individual was snuffed out?
George Floyd.
Okay, fair enough.
Ahmaud Arbery.
Can I speak to? So like a lot. So first of all,
what was my man in the Carolinas? Got shot in the back by the police officer 3 times.
Okay, so first of all, these are all individual things. A lot of these cases, there are differences of opinion on what happened in the facts. So, for instance, a lot of people feel like George Floyd died because of the fentanyl he ingested.
Wait. Let's talk about the facts. What we saw, right? Was the police officer not tried and convicted of his murder?
That doesn't necessarily.
No. We're talking facts.
Are we about to argue what we just saw? Are you really about to say don't believe your
responsible in the court of law, tried by his peers? Was he not found guilty of the murder of George Floyd? Yes or not?
I think that he didn't get.
It's not a matter of opinion. It's like you always want to sit there and want to tout statistics. And you want to tout. And
I'm allowed to have my opinion. I'm allowed to base my opinion on facts. My facts being
found guilty. I'm not trying to trap you to something. This is the end result, right?
No,
boom.
You're not listening. Not to listen. I think it's cowardice the way that you're treating me. I would never treat a guest like that I was talking to. I would never treat someone the way that you're treating me.
I wasn't interrupting when you were talking. I asked you a question. I answered your question. And you look back at me. I let you finish it. I never interrupted you. You keep interrupting me. I asked you a question. We asked who did you see get snuffed out? You said you couldn't. What's the name? You said you couldn't name somebody. Boom. We moved on to the next thing. And then I asked you another question. Yes or no? Was the officer involved in his death not found guilty of his murder? Was he not found legally responsible for his death?
So whether or not he's found legally responsible, I'm allowed to have the opinion that was not the cause.
Okay, I'm not asking about your opinion. Okay, how about this? I'll give you a 2-part question, right? To be fair, something that you haven't done to anybody on this panel. 2-part question. Was he found guilty? And then what's your opinion? Was he found legally responsible? Yes or no?
Legally, he's appealing it. So although he
was he found legally responsible? See, there you go, moving that's that thing that y'all do that we don't like. You're doing that thing. Was he not found guilty? Whether he's appealing it or not, was he not found guilty and found legally responsible for the death of George Floyd?
He was found guilty.
Boom. Okay. Now your opinion.
My opinion is that one, we had the president. We also had Maxine Waters, and we had other people threatening the jury if they did not come and find a certain decision. We had members of the jury taking pictures with people that they did not that supported George Floyd, essentially, and I forget who it was, but essentially pictures showing his support for George Floyd cause, showing that they were not biased. And also there are several things in his appeals process in which I do think he has valid legal reasons for an appeal, and I think that he will win on an appeal. So ask me in a year from now if he's a convicted felon. I don't know. We'll see.
I just want to point out, rest of the panel, I really respect y'all for being as quiet as y'all were and letting her finish her thought, something that she did not allow anybody else in this panel to do.
No, I'm not letting her finish her thoughts. I just don't care about her opinion.
So I just
it's fine. So, hold on, we're gonna do final first. Thank you. So we're gonna do final thoughts. Soldier, gonna let you take a whip because you're doing a lot of eye gestures. And then we'll let Lee go. Then we'll do solutions. So Soldier, if you'd like to respond to anything, go right ahead. And solutions, good sir. Remember, the topic was pretty much based on systemic racism, and there you go. Unless you want, you rub your nose. Unless you want Lee to go.
I mean, like me and you have had a conversation. You know I serve, right? Like, yeah. Me and you've had this conversation.
Yes.
And when we got a little bit further from policing, this is something that I wanted to add when we were speaking about policing, because a lot of the issue when I first said something about this was I was going to go into like the militarization of police, because the issue that a lot of us have in the Black community is like it's subjective versus objective of points of view in law. As a Marine, if I served in Iraq. If I go to Iraq or Afghanistan, if I shoot a civilian, regardless of whether or not I'm in a war zone, I have the right to defend myself according to that. That's what we say police have, the right to defend themselves. They are not in war zone. But if I shoot someone, it's objective. I get court-martialed. You understand what that means? I don't come home. I get jailed over there, not here. Police get subjective. That's where a lot of people have, like for me, that's my biggest issue. Why do I, in the defense of a country, Constitution and all, I have to have an objective? Would a reasonable person have done what I did in that situation? But a police officer, that's supposed to be a peace officer, they get to apply their opinion of a situation. So it's not in the basis of would a reasonable person do this? It's just, would they have done it? Is this what you thought in this moment? And that's legally sound. Now, does that sound right to anybody?
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
So you're a soldier?
Marine.
You're a Marine. Well, first of all, thank you for your service. Oh, hold on. Second of all, I was wondering, so you're saying that they have an objective standard for shooting like a person in a foreign country? So you're under you're not under the Constitution, right? So you swore under the UCMJ to uphold the values of the Constitution?
Yes.
Whereas police officers, they're under the Constitution. And they're not hired by the federal government. They're hired by their state and local governments, which each have their own legal standard.
They fall under both, because technically, depending on your case, it can have federal jurisdiction. Because if you look at a lot of these cases, there are state and local trials, and there are federal charges that are brought up. So, to a degree, yes, and to a degree, no. But yes.
Okay, so you could have state and federal jurisdiction over a case in which a state cop brought initial proceedings on. However, a state police officer is not going to, you're either going to be paid by the federal government, be like a federal agent such as the CIA or FBI, or you're going to be a state agent. But either way, you're going to be under your own municipality's laws, and whether that's subjective or an objective standard, that's different for every municipality.
Well, not really, because I haven't found an objective standard for policing anywhere in the United States outside of military officers. We have an objective standard.
So I'd love to see
hostile situation.
Like what you're referring to is mens rea. So like the state of mind, would the reasonable person have acted versus is it reasonable for me subjectively as the person that I am to have acted? And those are two separate legal standards. However, that's just a mens rea for a statute. So it doesn't really make sense unless you tell us what statutes you're referring to. So if you pull up the statutes for us, that would be great. So like, for instance, I can pull up the statutes for you.
Time out. I got to pause on this one. Now, just to be fair in conversation, when stats was mentioned, and then Duke brought out about stats and facts, you kind of like butted that a little bit. You went more of an opinion base. So we have to be fair at that one. If we're gonna bring out facts, stats, and facts, then we got to go back to.
I'm not talking about
I agree on that point of view. I'll give her that, because that is technically correct. Mens rea does technically That's why I said, does that sound right? I wasn't even necessarily bringing a factual basis. It is definitely factually based that soldiers apply on a objective versus a subjective view. We do not get that privilege. We just don't. But
Okay.
peace officers outside of a war zone, outside of a hostile situation or a consistently hostile situation,
All right. So
they do apply
we're
to that.
yeah,
But just
yeah, we're good. We're not gonna launch for that one. So, soldiers. Solutions, sir, with systemic racism or just racism, period, or both.
a solution would be not to do what we just saw done right here. Try to do the tit for tat, like bringing up the Holocaust, like that had something to do with anything, or like that there weren't nuances to that that would apply and make these things different. Like that, this is where the conversations always derail. They derail when we go to a I have to, the way to invalidate a point is to bring up something else that may not have been right or may not have, or some other tragedy to distract from instead of just dealing with what is on the table. It's almost as ridiculous as arguing different types of cancer. If this month is breast cancer month, it would be like me saying, so testicular cancer doesn't matter because we're talking about it. We're talking about this month. Like, that's ridiculous. Nobody would have that argument. But that's what we just did with the Holocaust. We just brought it up to invalidate slavery. And that's not even not even
Bro,
to say, not even to say that that's supposed to be the topic for systemic racism. But when we get to any of these conversations and we have to invalidate something instead of dealing with it, it's an issue. If you want to say that we want to deal with the Holocaust and maybe something more should be done because of hate crimes happening against Jewish people,
but that would be a different. Yeah, but that would be a different. Yeah, but that would be a different topic.
That would be a completely different topic. So to bring it up to invalidate this one is completely ridiculous. But this is what consistently happens when these conversations come. We can't deal with one because we need to invalidate the other, or that, I don't know if it comes into someone's mind that if we're dealing with this, that we can't deal with something else, or that this means that this is the only problem that exists, or what comes into a person's mind when you do that. So maybe to go forward, tell me what made you say that? What makes you bring that up?
Yeah, do questions. Time. We'll leave that up for the viewers to estimate on that one. But again, it's solutions. Miss Lola, I know, bro.
That's my solution, bro. Like, the only solution that I can come to is if we're going to have these conversations and we're going to say that we're going to have the conversation, we need to actually we can't be disingenuous with this. We have to actually deal with the topic. If it's systemic racism, if you don't feel like in your heart this actually happens, okay, fine. You don't need to invalidate by bringing something that has completely no relevance to this topic into it to invalidate it.
Dude, move on. Horse beaten dead and not even a good point.
All right, Lola, it's all good. Lola, solutions and final thoughts, please, madam.
Honestly, I take the position of my father. Like, we're not going to get anywhere racially with people that's different from us racially, because inherently they want their race to win, and if there's not so many winners, they should be racist for all intents and purposes. So I mean, I don't knock this lady, Miss Lauren, for being so combative over something that's so obvious to most people, because that's kind of in her nature. Trust me, she's not the only one, and she's not even the worst. But at the end of the day, I don't see a solution coming from sitting in front of people like that, having a conversation that they cannot relate to, and honestly, they have no right to even speak on. The only solution I see is leaving them to their devices and making sure that there's a clear line of differentiation between us when it comes to who is fighting for what and why. Meaning, we don't need Jewish people to acknowledge us in order for us to fight for what we know is ours. We really don't need that. And honestly, Jewish people don't look to Black opinions for them when it comes to what they need to get for them. And honestly, I respect that. They don't need our opinion for anything, and we don't need theirs. But we're not in their spaces talking about the relevancy of their plight. They're in ours, and that's
But that's not even true. Look at what they did with Kanye. You know how many
Soldier,
people
soldier,
have
soldier,
passed
soldier,
up when
soldier,
Kanye
soldier,
started
soldier,
doing
soldier,
the shit he was doing? Like, that's not even necessarily the case.
No, as far as people like that go, honestly, that it is a different topic. But
Yeah.
I would let me say this to you, Soldier. When people that look like me go outside the group and hang themselves to dry, I'll let them dry out there by themselves. Moving on. As far as last remarks, okay, I'll just say that, I mean, it's interesting to kind of chime in every couple of years, every couple of decades to see where we're at. And it's to no surprise that we're in the same place we were back in the early 70s when we were taping conversations between Black people and white people, and they were still doing stuff like bringing up the fact that there was Africans that sold Africans, even though we're talking about what happened after 68. Like, we're still at the same place we were back in the 70s, and God knows where we were 30 years before that. So it's just refreshing to see that what I thought was the same, and I was right before I even got involved. But I mean, no love lost. That's all I can say.
Fair enough. Lead, final thoughts, sir, and you already know how we do solutions.
My only thoughts about the solution is I understand where Miss Ocean, is that how you say that? Ocean. I do understand where you're coming from. Don't think I don't. Don't think that I don't. I come from a mixed family, so I've seen it from all sides.
That's another conversation for another topic. But go ahead.
Backstage.
But we aren't going to make progress if the only thing that we're going to do is keep pointing at the other, say someone doesn't understand, somebody doesn't this, doesn't that. And in the same token, we have been moving forward because there has been more and more people put under the umbrella of constitutional rights. Now, and I'm going to reiterate this, is it perfect? No, nothing will ever be perfect. But when it comes to the governance of nations, it's about as perfect that has ever happened on this planet. There isn't a nation that can come and say that their people have more opportunity or freer than anything, even though we're from the inside, seeing it from that direction. Go look in other countries. Even in their own, where they're the same, and there isn't much difference. Their opportunities are much less, and they live under much different rule than we do. So to move that forward is to keep moving it forward and expanding rights out and recognizing those. And I'll leave it at that because there's other things I'd like to address, but it'd take me 3 hours to do it. So
backstage.
You just want to say.
So I just want to end it on this. Can we please just show my screen really quick?
Sure. This is okay. So we'll use this as your final thoughts to induce them myself.
So
right?
This is not FBI or any governmental statistics. This is by a private institution. I specifically chose this. They're looking at all protected groups. So if you look here, anti-gay, anti-lesbian, anti-bisexual, and then when it finally comes to races, anti-Jews, there's more anti-Jewish than more anti-Black. So if we're talking about today, Jews actually do experience more racism. But that's basically my point from earlier, but I'm over it now. And then as for other things, this shaking your head, saying that I should just not be a part of the conversation, saying I shouldn't be here, giving me the eye, saying that, like, I really know what I'm talking about. I just come to a different opinion than you. It's not that I haven't heard your opinions. It's not that I haven't listened to your opinions. It's not that I'm
Racism.
disingenuous. It's that I have a different opinion than you because I've seen things differently than you and I've lived a different life than you. And so, and that's okay. And the fact that you want me not involved in your conversation means that you're not going to progress. The way that you progress is by hearing ideas that are different from yours, especially those that offend you, and learning from them.
Laura, you did not hear me say I needed to progress, let alone with you. So
yeah, she never said that.
I never said that. And I'm of my father's opinion. I leave you and your people over there. Okay, I don't come in your space.
You want to
I don't know why you in my space. Honestly, I really don't, because I don't come in your space doing nothing. Okay,
I ain't say none of that shit. I just want to say that.
Are you saying that I shouldn't be here on the Gray Pill podcast?
No, that's not what she's saying. She's saying pretty much.
No, let her. Please let her answer the question. Is that what you're saying? You're saying I'm in your space. Are you saying?
No, I'm gonna let your educated self and figure it out, because you heard.
So based off my educated self interprets that as you think me as a white person should not be here at the Gray Pill podcast.
That's not what she said.
Oh, but her facial expression, that is exactly what she said.
No, that's not what she said.
Look at her facial expression twice. That is exactly what she thinks.
All right, so
and that's fine. I would never, ever discriminate or say I dislike someone based off their race. I would never tell someone that they're not welcome in my space because of their skin color. You know why? That's racism. So you want solutions to racism? Maybe stop being racist. Ever thought about that? Ever thought about stop being a racist? Ever stop being?
I don't have a problem with racism. I have a problem with you in black space.
Racist.
That's what I have a problem.
All right. So why I didn't kick her? She actually left. So
I know she did.
Okay. So cool. So Deuce, we'll let you get your final thoughts. Bring it back, Soldier Boy. You got to fix that Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I didn't want her to leave. I wanted to have a conversation with her backstage.
No,
whatever.
Backstage is fine. Go ahead, bro.
Okay. So it's just straight to the point. About yes, I think it still exists, and I think the solution, right? I'm sorry. My aunt said something, right? She was born in 1918, and she said something before she died. She said she died in 2004. She said no, she died in 2006. I'm sorry. And she said, never in my lifetime will I see a black president. President Obama was voted into office 2 years later, and she was absolutely right. The changes that we think we're going to see, we're not going to see in our generation, right? If you look at history, any change, any law, anything that's ever been enacted, you don't actually see the change from it. You don't even start to even see the change from it for at least 100 years. If you look at the Emancipation Proclamation, 1865, right? We had to have the Civil Rights Act in 1968, right? That's 103 years. So from there, 2068, the change that people think we have today, the progression that we think that they want to say we have right now, you're not really going to see that until 2068, which, Lord willing, inshallah, we'll all be alive that time to see it. So we're not going to see it. It's generational, right? Because there's too much issues, there's too much hurt, there's too much pain, there's too much disagreements, right? Only thing that's going to change people's opinions at this point, historically speaking, is time. And especially because now you have the intermixing of races, you have this huge melting pot, you have social media, you have the world is closer than it has ever been before, and the world is so much more exposure, and that's also making us move a little faster. So before, when you saw it on average at 100 years, I think you might see it in 75 years. I think you might start seeing it at 50 years, right? Change is happening quicker because people are having less patience, right? We're going to see it, but we don't see it. It's not where you think it is today, right now, because we are dealing with issues that we've always dealt with. And for Black people, what we have always dealt with, right, has been racism and issues with the police and policing in our communities. It's always been there. Our grandparents told us their stories. Our great-grandparents told us their stories. Our grandparents told us their stories. Our mothers and fathers told us their stories, and we have our stories of our own. And we're going to be giving our children the same. I have to talk to my son. My son's biracial, right? My son's half Black, half white. But I don't talk to him that way. To me, my son is Black. And I'm going to have to give him the same warning that my parents gave me, that my grandparents gave me. Like I said, all four of my grandparents are still alive. I knew all of my great-grandparents. The same warnings they gave me about how to interact with the police, how to interact, how to know like perception, how I'm perceived by this world. I have to give that same warning to my son, and I have to tell him how to navigate this world as a black man. So that part has not changed. We're going to see some differences now because people are becoming more tolerant. Yes, have we progressed to Lee's point? Absolutely, we have progressed, but we're not where you think we are. From our point of view, we are not where you would like to think that we are. Are we moving in that direction? Yes, but not as fast as you think. And we have not gotten as far as you think. We got another 50 years before we get there.
The fact that we gotta have a conversation should tell you that. 'Cause I bet you white parents ain't telling their kids how to talk to cops.
And that's the issue that we had with Lauren when she before with that whole cherry picking thing. It's like she don't have to have a conversation with her children the same way you do, but she's gonna tell you her child is more targeted than yours. She doesn't live in neighborhoods where the police are constantly looking at the women, the men like they just the most dangerous thing on the planet and stopping them. But she'll tell you that her people are more targeted. And even though vandalism happens to black people and black organizations just as much as Jewish organizations, she's going to tell you statistics say we're more targeted because that's what the books have cooked up for you. And she wants you to really believe that. But when you tell her about something she's seen on television, she want to tell you this is subjective and about opinions. But then
I checked the statistics
back at you in the next paragraph. She wants to throw statistics, but then get opinionated when it comes to what she's seen live on television. This is why I don't come in their spaces because they're not working with the same mind. They're just not. And honestly, I don't need their opinion for things to change. I need them, as they say, F you pay me. Jewish people don't mind racism for real. They don't. They mind when you mess up their money and when you come into their neighborhood. That's the only two things they care about. And that's the only two things I really care about. I don't want those police in the neighborhood, and the ones that's in there, I want them to be in there for real, not on some BS. Okay, that's it. Like honestly, black people, in my opinion, have only asked to be left alone. That's it. That's all we're asking for you to leave us alone. You don't have to do nothing for us. Just leave us alone. And it's like that's the hardest thing. But you got people coming up here going tit for tat where you got to ask her, are you telling me that the Holocaust happened after 1970? And she's gonna argue with you about that. But then, but we're supposed to respect her and her position in this conversation.
Well, there was also a little bit of elitism that she had when she came in. It was like, I am a Jewish doctor. You know what I'm saying? So it's like she walked in already with the confidence, thinking that she was the most educated person on the panel.
But who gave her that confidence?
The institutions, right? That whoever gave her degree.
But here's the thing: I have a degree in forensic science. I have 2 other degrees as well. I am literally the liaison to the federal government that gets all of the Jewish community in my state.
This is why I asked for you, Lola. This is why I asked for you, Lola. I don't bring retards on my panel. I bring people actually got some sense. And this is why I love the Great Pill Podcast. You know what I'm saying? Because people actually have. First of all, y'all guys don't lead with that. And that's just pretty much you don't lead with that. And
right,
most people, you never. Like I said, I know you dudes. I definitely don't do you. So me and Lee get along with other spaces, so I understand that. So when people come with that, so I just want to say this, and this will be my final thoughts. Just to show an example, because me and Lee had this conversation. Anybody actually knows me, know me. I enjoy the conversation. I don't purposely go looking for the KKK to have a conversation. I don't think that would never happen. Now, if they just happen to pop up in my restaurant and be sitting talk, hey, let's go. I'm good for a cup of coffee. You know what I'm saying?
Wait,
you buy? Yes.
I do have one thing, right? So with the whole thing about comparing tragedies, right? I hate when. So let's just stay on topic, right?
Cool. I love how you say my closing thoughts, though. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but hold on. We gotta say this out loud before we get canceled, right? Slavery and the Holocaust is 2 different things, right? They were both horrible. They were both horrible times in human history where human beings were absolutely terrible to one another. You know what I'm saying? And we got to stop comparing tragedies. You know what I'm saying? Like we have our people, we have our tragedy that has its place and its place for its conversation, its space for its conversation, and they have theirs. And you know what I'm saying? Like conversations start devolving when you start comparing tragedies. You know what I'm saying? Like, white people were slaves too. Let's not do this. Let's talk about our stuff.
You good now?
So we've acknowledged They're both tragedies.
All right, we're good now.
Before you Mel Gibson us.
Okay, cool. Soldier, don't come yell. No. Like a whole 2 hours. I've been moderating the whole conversation. So let me address this real quick. No, JM, I appreciate you. It's needed because again, it shows an example how everybody's character. You know what I'm saying? She's more than welcome to come here anytime, just like Robbie, Peace, Love, and everybody else. But I hate everybody else. I asked you a question. Hey, you want to come on? This is the topic. You say yes. You come up. You have a conversation. Lola, perfect example. Me and her was on a panel respectfully because I was actually poking a bear with her. But we had a respectable conversation. Trust me, she's still here. She's not cutting my throat or nothing like that, you know. But it's a conversation. So it just only shows an example of people. There's no favoritism or any sorts. She's more than welcome to come on any topic, any panel. I don't know if she know any. I don't think she knows any much about the Tatey boy, Andrew Tate. But I'm gonna have that conversation Saturday because I'm gonna eat that sucker live. So y'all just get ready for that conversation. So it's gonna be an open panel for Saturday for Andrew Tate. We'll have an open dialogue for that. So Lola, you're more than welcome. Lee, Soldier, Deuce, y'all more than welcome for that conversation. I'm just gonna leave my time, my full hour, you know, to go in on Tate because there's been a lot of controversy left aside. I had some friends at the back end like, no, here, look, show me clippings like they the flat earther. I'm like, bro, what are we showing right now? I'm actually showing you the lawyers dissecting this. Legal documents, people's coming up. Hell, he's walking back and forth into jail. I even got stuff of the bottom B's, you know, all that. So, you know, miss me with that. But everybody comes on these panels is a perfect example, depending on the topic, is a representation of just a conversation. That's it. You cannot pick at one person and say, oh, well, this is an example of all, and we didn't do that. It's a conversation. So unfortunately, sometimes the conversation just go a little bit left, go a little bit right. I don't mind the engagement, but we bring it back full circle. So that's why I was like saying, hey, Lola, the fact that, like I said, I know you, I know Deuce. Deuce actually love to debate. You know what I'm saying? That's what's, hey, let him rock for a minute because he'll make it come on the way they need to come. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. So I know how people work. So I appreciate everybody for coming in. Check me out for Saturday for the Tate live stream. Also check for the uploads. I'm gonna be doing more uploads than live. So I've been downloading a lot of data and statistics and facts about Tate. All right, so that's coming up too. More of that earlier tomorrow in the morning. Also, I will be doing more documentaries too because I screwed up, but it actually turned into a real conversation. So every Saturday we're gonna have, and this is for you, Lola. You're more than welcome. Every Saturday we're gonna call Sociable Saturday. So it's gonna be open panel. Have a conversation. If you have topics come up, hey, we'll have that conversation when you walk in the door. All right.
Okay.
So I appreciate everybody. Just brag one more time. Hey, I hit K not once, but I hit 1K twice. So shout out to you, boy. Got those. Huh?
I'll eat seafood pasta. My ass, but I'll eat.
Oh yeah. I appreciate everybody. What's that little closing out? Where'd it go? Can I get a